Sidechaining means using the output of one track to alter the compression on another track. Let me show you what it actually means. Consider this synth audio and this kick audio too. If we sidechain the synth audio with the kick signal as the sidechain input, this is what we would get. This, along with the kick signal, can be considered the final output. First, let's hear it without the sidechain. Now with the sidechain. I hope you heard how prominent the kick is in this one. Here's the difference again. That is sidechaining. Now let's see how and why we should implement it. Let me open up this demo project. First, let's consider this sub bass and this kick. See what happens when they are played together. Individually, they do not exceed about 0 dB, but when combined in the master bus, they do, by a value of about 1.2. This can lead to clipping and a decrease in the overall loudness of the track. As a matter of fact, this red light means clipping has occurred. In addition to that, let's take a look at the frequency spectrum. Here, blue represents the kick and the pink kind of color represents the bass. We can see that it's the lower frequencies which make most of both these sounds. And if not handled properly, this frequency range will be the main cause for a mix to sound muddy. So naturally, when we are sidechaining the bass to the kick, we are essentially cleaning up the mix. Now let's see how we can do it. First we add a compressor to the track, and then in the kick track, we add a send to the compressor. We can use any compressor that can take a sidechain input. They may look different, but all of them have more or less the same parameters to control. This is a plugin that I placed after the compressor in the FX rack to get a visual feedback. Now in the compressor, we can start off by setting the threshold and the ratio for our first audition. This is where the kick is happening. The speed at which the change in volume should happen is determined by the attack in the compressor that we are using. See what happens when we increase the attack. See how gradual it is? For now, in this case, we want the attack to be at its least value possible. See how abruptly it cuts the bass? Now for the release, it determines how long it should keep the volume tucked like that. Observe the waveform as I play around the release slider. The combination of the parameters that we started with, namely threshold and ratio, are the ones that decide how much gain reduction should be done on the main input. Now in certain genres, we might need the sidechaining to be really subtle. Like in rock music where sidechaining should be pretty much unnoticeable but still want the kick to come out a little more than the bass. Or in trap music where the kick and 808 occupying almost the same lower frequency range are supposed to sound pretty much merged and still has the punch of the kick. We can make sure of that by using this plugin. Let me show you how to do it by placing it in the master bus. Now we can see the sidechain bass as well as the kick, which can be used to make them fit better together. Now let's consider one more instrument. We would have to sidechain that too. But what if we have a load more tracks that require to be sidechained to the kick? Then this is what we do. Insert a bus, add the compressor into the new bus. This one is already receiving the kick signal, so we don't have to send it again. Now we select all the tracks that require to be sidechained and we direct their output to the new bus that we created. Then check if the compressor parameters need any update. That was just a demo on how to do it. Now let's see one of the most common creative ways in which sidechaining is used. Now this is my EDM project which you might have seen in this YouTube channel. And here we have a bunch of tracks going to the sidechain bus in which we have our sidechain compressor, which I'm going to turn off for now. Now let's turn it back on. In addition to keeping the mix clean and under 0 dB, it is delivering that common EDM pumping feel. Let's hear that without the kick. Now let's move back to mixing. Have a listen to this piano from my remix project. If I were to sidechain this the usual way, this is what it would sound like. See, we are losing the entirety of the initial attack of the piano. So what I actually did here is set the output of the piano track to a different bus that would only sidechain the lower frequencies. Let me show you how I did that. Let's go to the bus named sidechain low, and in here we have the equalizer TDR Nova. Let me turn this Nova off for now so that I can redo it for you guys. Adding one more instance of TDR Nova. Let's turn all these bands off. Then add a send from the kick to the Nova we just added now, like we did with the compressor. Now back in that Nova, select external sidechain. Now we can see the sidechain input in here by selecting this. We can see how much the sidechain input is hitting. So now we know the highest threshold value from where we can start from. Let's turn the threshold on and set it to a good value. Anytime the sidechain input crosses this value, the main input will be sidechained based on the difference between the sidechain input gain and this threshold, and also this ratio. This is what's happening inside a normal sidechain compressor, which is not what we want now. So let's turn the threshold off and enable a band and set threshold and ratio for that particular band. As you can see, we can focus on the prominent frequencies of the kick. And finally, we have attack and release as well. Now let's see how this is affecting the output. We can also add more bands if needed with their own individual settings. By the way, the kick is now the only sidechain input we can have. For instance, here I sidechained the strings with the vocal as both of them were competing for the same mid frequency. Vocal is the one that needed more clarity among the two. That is why I compromised on the strings and sidechained it to the vocal. That was to get a cleaner mix. Let me show you another scenario. Here I sidechain the strings again with the plucky lead. Usually, the human ear can pick up the differences in the higher frequency spectrum. That is why they do not cause a muddy mix most of the time. But here it was building up the overall gain, which was resulting in clipping. Hence, I sidechained it with a frequency that was causing the buildup. Now I figured an image might be useful for the last scenario in which I have used sidechaining. This is exactly what you saw in the beginning of this video, but I'm changing it a little bit based on the context. Here we are sidechaining the effects to the original dry signal. It can be used with any sound like chords, leads or whatever. I have chosen my vocal processing project for this demo cause it's easier to grasp when there are words involved. In here we have the main vocal and here a bus exclusively for its effects. Obviously I'm sending a copy of the vocal to the effect bus. We have one more send which is being received by the compressor I have added in that bus. In the effects track we have a normal delay, a dub delay and a reverb plugin before the sidechain compressor, cause it's this output of the reverb plugin that I want to sidechain to the dry signal. First let's hear it with the compressor turned off.
Tell me babe, you wanna leave this town? I'm saying, love her if you wanna go on down.
Now let's turn it back on.
Tell me babe, you wanna leave this town?
Obviously, this one gives more clarity. So that's all the ways in which I have implemented sidechain till now. What do you think of this? If you have anything more to add or if you think there are better ways, then let us all know by commenting it down below. And leave a like if you found this video useful. Subscribe and turn on the bell notification so that you won't miss any future uploads. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you next time.